So Tara, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to um, my viewers about your experience. So if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself. You recently turned 50. Tell us what you do for a living, your family life, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I did just turn 50 this past January. Married to my husband John, and I have a daughter, Samantha, who is a rising junior in college. I work at a financial services firm. I'm the vice president on a customer protection team, and I also sell real estate on the side for Coldwell Banker Realty.
Amazing. You truly are a rock star. That's one thing. One reason I wanted to interview you is because you do lead such a busy life, yet you were just, so on point with your program and you got amazing results. So I'm sure you have a lot of great tips for our viewers. So, and yes, we love your husband, John. He gets Husband of the Ward a year. And can I share that little story about the
Sure.
photo on the beach?
Yeah.
So a few weeks ago, you took your summer vacation on the Cape and you were rocking your bikini and you were walking out of the water with your sunglasses on. And unbeknownst to you, your husband had taken a photo of you walking out of the water and he sent it to you and he said, "This should be in a swimsuit magazine." And you sent me the picture and he was spot on. You definitely looked amazing. You looked like you were coming right out of Sports Illustrated. And I just thought that was the cutest thing. I'm like, he gets Husband of the Year award.
Yeah, he definitely does. I think the best part about that is I had no idea he did it. And the even better part, as I saw the picture, and we're so critical of ourselves, right? We're like our worst critics. I was like, wow, like look at the journey I've been through and where I started and where I am. And I felt really good. And it's always nice for your husband to have fabulous things to say as well. So yeah, he does get Husband of the Year for that and many other reasons for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about that journey. So before we started working together, what was going on?
Yeah, so I've always had a personal trainer and I've always eaten relatively healthy, so I thought, and I sort of tracked my macros here and there, but I didn't really know what I was doing, quite honestly. And in June of 2023, um, as I was, approaching turning 50, I decided that I need to quit smoking. I know, very bad habit, especially today's day and age with everything we know. And I've been smoking for so very long. I was, for that summer, I said to myself, I was going to continue to go to the gym, continue to eat relatively healthy. I had a personal trainer that I went to 2 to 3 times a week, and I spent a massive amount of time on the cardio machines in the gym outside of those training sessions. So I said, I'm not going to weigh myself. I'm just going to continue on path and just focus on the task at hand because it was really important that I quit. So at the end of that summer, I decided to weigh myself because I felt like a sausage. Like I just felt a little bit thick here and there. And to anyone else, I'm sure I looked fine, but it's really how you personally feel. And I just didn't quite feel right in clothes and I wasn't comfortable. So I weighed myself and I gained 5 pounds. Now, someone might say, you gained 5 pounds. Like that's not bad, especially quitting smoking. And you hear stories of people gaining 10, 20, 30 pounds. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna lose the 5 pounds. And I can honestly tell you that the nothing I did, I was able to lose 5 pounds. And I'm that 80s, 90s mindset of like diet, salad, and do cardio. And, I did a little weight training here and there, but it was like light and fluffy in hindsight looking back. And in fact, I was gaining weight. I would gain a pound and then I'd lose a quarter of a pound and then I'd gain another pound. And I wasn't even eating. I think when you and I first started, I think my calorie intake for tracking before we started this journey was like 900 or 1,000 calories. Like I was barely eating. I was doing massive amounts of cardio in the gym and I was getting nowhere. So I decided to hire like a homeopathic woman. She was out of Paris. It was referred to me by a family friend. And, she helps cancer patients. I didn't have cancer because usually when you go through chemo, you go into menopause. She gave me all kinds of supplements and, that helped with all the perimenopause symptoms, but it did not help with the weight. And I went on vacation that fall and I was very uncomfortable in shorts and, I had to force myself in that vacation to be in a positive mindset because physically I just did not feel well, feel good about myself. So that was around November of 2023. And right at the beginning of December, give or take, I was on the Boston Business Women's Network page. And I so happened to come across your amazing post of before and after. And I literally immediately messaged you, and you immediately messaged me back. And I think we had a meeting the next day. And that kind of started the journey with you over the past 6 or so months.
I love it. Thank you for that story. I love hearing people's journeys, and I think it's so important for other people to hear the journey because so many of us have gone through the same things, and it's good to know you're not alone, first of all, and every that other people are having the same struggles, and then it's awesome to know that there's a solution
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, so that was really interesting. When we did your first 2 weeks of tracking, we noticed you were not eating a lot. There were, yeah, days where it was 1,900. And
I was
so the first thing we
starving.
did,
Before I started working with you, I was literally starving myself. And I think in going through this process with you, and I know we'll talk a bit about it, but I look back at it and I would have never guessed a fair amount of things that we have done together would have worked. Um, I pretty much somewhat stopped cardio, although I walked and got my steps in, but it wasn't like 30 minutes like fast walking on a treadmill, or I didn't spend 34 minutes on a Stairmaster. Like I saved so much time to be able to focus on this program because those results weren't working. And, like I said, on the 80s mindset, like weight training, using weights and using heavy weights is not something I was comfortable with at all. But I will tell you that for anyone listening, I got the biggest bang when I increased my calories and I started heavy weight training and I worked up to it. I think with my personal trainer before you, doing a leg press, I had 245. And that's what I did every day for
on
years
each side.
with the trainer on each side, 245. Now I am up to a total of 645 combined on both sides and 225. And I think it was the moment in our training where you started increasing my calories and I was panicking because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to gain more weight and I can't even lose it. And when we started increasing my weight, and you have a whole strategy around that, and that's when the weight started coming off. And that's when I started seeing the transformation because I was so concerned with this process of weight training equals bulky and thick. And I didn't want a bodybuilder type look. That's not what my goal. Some people may, and that's totally fine for them. But for me, like that lean look is what I was looking for. So there were so many parts in the process where I was like wowed by what we were doing. And I just totally trusted in you with all of it. Like everything you told me to do, I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And I just would do it.
Wow, you just dropped so many bombs, and I kind of want to go over it because what you just said was amazing. When we increased your calories, that's when you started losing weight, and your body responded really well. And it took a while for you to get there because you just weren't used to eating that much food. So we did it a little at a time because I'm like, if I take you from 1,000 to 1,800 calories, you're going to be like, I can't eat all this food.
Yeah.
So we slowly got you there, and it took a while. You had a lot of patience, and it's really hard to do that. So I commend you for that. Because most people just like they sign up for a program, they're like, I want that rapid fat loss. But what ends up happening is sometimes you go right to that stage and you just keep spinning your wheels, and all this time goes by and nothing happens. But if you just take a little bit of time to kind of restore your metabolism, fuel your body, in the long run, you save time.
Yeah.
Because
And I
as soon
think,
as we,
yeah, I
sorry, go
think with
ahead.
you increasing it, I think what we did was it was like the macros were readjusted to like 100 calories more every week for a period of time. And, some people may be not willing to start this process because they'll think that they're not going to be able to eat what they want, and they're going to be hungry. And I can tell you that most days I had to force eating because I had like 350 calories left and I could eat more and I needed to eat more to like keep on track. So some days it was really hard to even get it in. I was excited for the extra calories. Once my body got used to it, I was like, oh, I like this. I like this. So I was eating more. I was never hungry and I wasn't following like a diet with this. And I think that's what made it very manageable. And we talked about this recently. One of my previous trainers, personal trainers, and I sent this to you the other day. I found her meal plan that she gave me several years ago. I think it was back in 2022. And I think that meal plan is what turned me off to the whole process. It was chicken, rice, baked potato, egg, half an apple. Like there was no robustness. Like it wasn't a meal plan that could fit into my lifestyle. And I think with as you call it, I think flexible eating, you can eat basically what you want within reason as long as it fits in the macros. And food in my family is very important. My husband's Italian, I'm half Italian. We sit down at dinner every night and eat as a family. And to not be able to have what everyone else was having would not I wouldn't be able to do this process. And I was able to, like everything I made for my family for dinner, I ate it because I fit in my macros. So I have, meatloaf and jasmine rice. I mean, maybe they want au gratin potatoes, but I'll just make a jasmine rice that says, you know, outside of the box that I went. And I'd factor in chicken ziti and broccoli. And before I put the heavy cream in for my family, I would just take my portions out that was made a little bit different. And we were just all able to eat the same things versus this very strict, stringent meal plan. So that was really important to me.
Oh, that is so amazing. And I love you do Thursday nights, you do breakfast for dinner. I think it is every Thursday with your husband. You go food shopping and then you go out for breakfast.
We do. We go to a local like diner type restaurant. We do breakfast for dinner, and all the waitresses and waiters know my order. But like even that, like breakfast for dinner before you on Thursday nights, and we've been doing it since like COVID. It was kind of like our thing. We started doing it at home, and then after the pandemic ended, we went out for breakfast for dinner. But before working with you, my breakfast for dinner was egg white omelet, one piece of toast, and maybe a little bit of grape jelly. That was my breakfast for dinner with tomatoes in the omelet. And now my breakfast for dinner, we just went the other night, was egg white omelet, which I could have had a regular one. I just chose not to. I like egg whites with spinach and tomatoes, 2 pieces of wheat toast, 3 pieces of bacon, and a pancake. Like never in a million years would I have eaten that before working with you. But think about it for anybody who's listening. Like that's a really hearty meal. There's no diet there. And that all fit in my macros. And I was super excited about it. Like now, if I can't have the bacon on breakfast for dinner on night, I'll be really unhappy. So it worked for me.
Amazing. Like that makes my hair, I got goosebumps. I get so excited hearing that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And the other thing you said was, you didn't want to get bulky, so you were hesitant to lift heavy. And I think this was, a big thing for all of us women. It's becoming more popular now, but that is a really common concern for people. They don't want to go in the gym and lift heavy because they think, I don't want to get bulky. And the truth of the matter is it does take a really, really long time to build muscle. So, and you need to eat a lot of food to get bulky. But muscle takes up less space than fat. So lifting heavy, and heavy just means that you're taking your reps almost to failure. So, your weight, you could be lifting a different weight than I am, but as long as that intensity is there, if I say do 12 reps on number 12, you just want to be like, it's got to be like,
Right.
man, I could barely do it, or I think I could have just really only done one more kind of thing. And
Yeah.
that's what gives you that lean tone look.
Yeah.
And if you find that over time you are starting to look bulky, because that's a very subjective thing, what looks bulky to me might not look bulky to you. But if you start to see your body changing in a way that you think you're growing too much muscle, then you can just pull back and stop doing progressive overload. And it's a very easy fix to that. So
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I never felt bulky in this process. In fact, building the muscle. So for me, being in midlife, um, your skin, your gravity sets in, right? So everything goes south, right? And everything looks a little crinkly. And for me, that was a big thing. It was part of our goals. Like I want to fill that in a non-bulky way. And just going through this weight training process, we did that, and I see the before and after pictures from when I first started to now, and it's massive, massive changes and big difference. So I never felt bulky in the process, but we went slow and steady. Like I wasn't looking for a big bang in the beginning. It was like a process. But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you do look amazing. And you mentioned that you had saved a bunch of your smaller sizes. You had them,
Mhm.
in storage, and you were able to resurrect them. Tell us about that.
I was, when I went through that journey that I mentioned to you, quitting smoking at the end of that summer, all of my shorts, like they fit, but I had muffin top, or because I was filled them in a little more, they were a little shorter. And so instead of donating them, I decided to get a bin, and I put all of them in the attic. And I said, I am going to reach this goal. If it kills me, I'm reaching the goal, and I'm going to overcome this. And they stayed in the attic for about 2 years. And this summer, and I think I shared in bathing suits too, like bathing suits that used to fit me just fine. Like I couldn't wear them because things were bulging in different places that they shouldn't be. And those went in the bin. And this summer, I, you know, took them all out, and everything just fit on like a glove. And like I said, I truly believe that's from the flexible plan that you put in place from a food perspective with macros and increasing weight in the gym. And I think what's interesting for me in this process is the 10 years that I've had a personal trainer, and I have for 10 years because it forced me to go to the gym. Um, I could never go to the gym by myself because I never knew really what to do because I wasn't paying attention. They just told me where to go and how many reps, and I just do it. So what this process allowed me to do is like now I go to the gym and I know exactly what to do, warm up sets, increasing weight, just continually improving. And that was really big for me too, because now I feel very comfortable in the gym. Like I didn't even realize I'm supposed to eat before I go to the gym for me and my plan. So I would go to the gym hungry, thinking, oh, if I go hungry and I work out, I'm going to lose more, which was the wrong mindset for sure. So yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely, you can work out with on an empty stomach. There are times it's appropriate, but I prefer people to be fueled when they go there, so they can power through their workout and have some good lifts and not feel lightheaded, and they can feel strong and have the energy. Sometimes like, oh, if you went to bed late and you had a huge meal the night before, it's like, well, maybe you don't want to get up and eat, and then
yeah.
you can go to the gym fasted. But yeah, that's amazing. Um, what else? So, what size were those clothes you saved? I think you said they were double zeros.
They were double zeros, and I went up 2 sizes to fit into my new body before I met you, and I was able to pull those out. So yeah,
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, I loved that, your body responded really, really well. So after we kind of spent some time um, getting your calories up, and we were sort of eating at your maintenance for a while, and then when we decided to do your cut and go to fat loss, it just kicked in right away, and that was amazing. And you were really, really good about tracking.
yeah,
So you had your spreadsheet. You would fill it out every day with your macros and your weight and your biometrics and all that. And so what I loved about it is that we had this data, so we
right,
could look at this over time and see like what happened when we changed something.
yeah,
um, so you were like the the perfect client, and it was just great to having this data. We were able to make good decisions. So now,
yeah,
going forward, depending on what you're working on, we kind of know how your body will respond based on this history.
yeah. And I think planning for the day is how I approached it. I'm not a meal prepper for the week. Like on Sundays, I wouldn't meal prep all my food. I know some people do, and that's fabulous. I wish I could be that person. I'm just not. So for me, I would sit down in the morning when I'm having my coffee and say, what are we having for dinner? Because dinner is the most important meal to me and my family. And it's like tonight's meatloaf and baked potato. That's what we all decided we wanted, and a vegetable. So I would put that in first for the day and then plan my other meals, being able to eat a good dinner with my family. I'm a huge sandwich person for lunch. I like whole cuts. Um, I changed from pretzels to rice cakes. The caramel ones taste like candy, so it made sense for me. And for breakfast, I never really ate breakfast. I'd have like a zone bar or a protein bar. And now I'm having, yogurt and toast with some peanut butter on it, or protein granola, which is very good and yummy, or making eggs if I have time, which I always don't have time. So I never felt slighted. And in many weeks after dinner, I was able to have a few cookies, which that was a treat, or I was able to go out for ice cream with my family and just got soft serve ice cream and a cone versus all the toppings, or I'd have a half a cone or whatever it is. So it worked really, really well for me.
That is awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you shared that because um, you had so many great tips and tricks for staying on track. And that's another reason I wanted to interview because, you have such a busy life. I mean, you have a very, high powered job and you're, realtor on the weekends and you have your daughter and that brings me to a lot of traveling you did to go
Yeah.
to your daughter's cheerleading competitions. And also, early on when we started working together, you took your birthday trip to Aruba
Uh-huh.
and it was a surprise from your husband. So you didn't even know where you were going until the last minute. Can you tell us like what your strategies were for when you were traveling?
Yeah. So a couple of things. The biggest strategy that worked well for me was generally in the beginning, I would have my protein shake after I came back from the gym in the morning. I swapped that and had a different protein and had my protein shake after dinner. And the reason why I did that was because if we planned meatloaf for dinner, my husband's spontaneous. He'd be like, hey, you want to go to that Italian restaurant down the street and we'll do meatloaf tomorrow. So I was able to remove the protein shake, readjust the dinner, and instead of having a full serving of the protein shake, I may only have needed a quarter of it because what I was getting at the restaurant had more protein in it. So that was huge for me. Traveling for work and my daughter's competitions and then open houses on the weekends. For me, I have this little Yeti soft cooler and I pack a lunch because I pretty much can get a decent breakfast anywhere. But it was lunch, and even yesterday, my daughter had a showcase down at a college in Rhode Island with a bunch of cheer teams, and it ended a little after 12. And then I had a ton of errands to do after that, driving back from Rhode Island. I packed a sandwich. I packed my lunch. I had my little cooler. I had a couple ice packs, put it in the back seat of the car. The second I got in the car after the showcase, I ate my lunch while I was sitting there and then was off. Now, in past, I would just stop at, I wouldn't necessarily do fast food, but I'd go to Dunkin' Donuts and get an egg sandwich thinking that would be enough and that would be, before you. And now it was just, it doesn't take that much more to put a sandwich or whatever your lunch is in a mini cooler. And I would do that for open houses because usually open houses are over lunch, right? 11 to 1. And I would leave the open house and pull around the corner and eat my lunch in the car and then, drive 45 minutes home. And it's things that like that made a difference. Traveling for cheer competitions are always tough because you're in a new place. You don't know restaurants around there. One of the places we go is Daytona, which isn't always the safest place for me as a female walking around at night by yourself, if you will. So I'd rented a place that had a kitchen, like a condo, and I'd have Instacart deliver it. And I still went out to dinner, but I had like your breakfast and lunches and things I can have in the room, and that made a huge difference. Trips to Aruba. I think Aruba, we started in December of 24 24, right? No, yep, 24. And my trip to Aruba was in January, and I was so internally nervous because I'm investing all of this into your program, and I didn't want to ruin it by a week's vacation. And one of the things I was a little concerned about is being able to drink on vacation. And I'm not a big drinker, but I do like to have a drink with dinner and one after dinner. And, you actually have a macro item for alcohol. And that was huge because I could have, 2 drinks, let's just say, and it went either all fat or we could break it up between carbs and fat, depending on what I was eating for the day. And that made me really happy. My drink of choice has always been a Stoli raspberry Sprite and a lime. And one very small shift was taking out the Sprite with seltzer water. And that allowed me to have more than just one drink, so I was able to continue to enjoy myself on vacation. And we were going to an all-inclusive, so obviously there's buffets and restaurants, and we just looked things up beforehand, and I was able to have rough idea mappings in my head. But still, every morning I would go to the gym, I'd sit on the beach in the lounge chair and say, okay, what's my plan for the day? And now it just comes very easy and natural, and I wouldn't do it any other way.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, when you were, I think it was Daytona, you were all out by the pool, and you were with a bunch of other moms, and they were, having poolside meals, and it's really hard to navigate those situations because it's a social situation. The food is good. You want to relax. You want to have a good time. Do you have any like what sort of mindset shifts do people need to have to sort of get through those situations?
I think that if you're on vacation and you want to have a pina colada, you can factor it in. I mean, maybe you don't have something else during the day to make up for that. So it's not like I ever felt without, and maybe it wasn't a gigantic one and you asked for a half one, so you didn't have this massive portion and you still got a piece of it, right? My husband's notorious for, and we talked about this, do you want to bite? Do you want to bite? Do you want to sip? Do you want to sip? And he's Italian, so it's like food is love, and take a bite, have some food. And desserts, I was big. So I had asked you once, how do I track a bite of a cannoli? Because I'm not eating a whole cannoli. I'm not a huge dessert person, but I do like a bite. And you have an item I can put in on the macros, which is a chocolate truffle. So you should see me in the morning if we're on vacation. I'm like, okay, tonight I'm going to have 3 bites of chocolate truffle, and that's more than enough for me. That worked for me. And I could have more, but it would have just taken away from like bread or something. I don't know. And I like bread. So yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's a lot about balance. We can't kind of say yes to everything, but we shouldn't say no to everything either. And it's like, all right, well, I really want the bread today. So I'm going to have the bread and, maybe a glass of wine, but I'm going to skip dessert. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing if you have like a lot of things going on in your life. You might have, a social night out with friends Friday night, and then you've got a wedding on Saturday, and then there might be baptism on Sunday. And if you want to partake in every single one, you're definitely not going to be able to stay on plan. And
Yeah.
if you're okay with realizing, all right, I might gain a few pounds after this, fine. But if you do that week after week after week, you find you're never going to get ahead. And at
Yeah.
some point, you got to say like, well, there's got to be some restriction somewhere. It just has
Yeah.
to be something that I that feels the least restrictive. I've
Yeah.
heard Lane Norton say that a lot, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think even last weekend I had, I'm part of a nonprofit group in my town, and there was a summer get together with a bunch of women on a Saturday. It was a beautiful day, sunny. Everyone was bringing all kinds of foods and treats, and I decided I was going to. And it's a choice, right? So how am I going to handle that situation? Because you go and you're chatting, and you grab a cookie, you grab this, you grab that, and you don't realize how many calories that all becomes in the end. It's like not thoughtful thinking about food, right? So for me, I decided I was going to eat lunch before I went. this way I go when I'm not hungry. And I factored in having a drink, and that worked out just fine. I was able to enjoy myself just as much as anyone else. I just chose not to have the dip, and and that's okay. And if I wanted the dip, I would have factored it into my day, but it wasn't important enough to have it. So I think for me, eating during the 3 meals of the day, if you will, in a time frame, made me not hungry to want those other things. And I ended up making and eating what I wanted. Now, when you go out to dinner with friends and such, I don't eat before I go. I factor in that dinner first, like I said, and plan around it. And even several weeks ago, we had a whole bunch of us went to 80s night at a Chinese restaurant, and I was a little panicked because I'm like, how am I going to track my macros with Chinese food? Like, I'm not going to be able to eat for the whole day, right? Kind of thing in my mind. That wouldn't have been the case. I could have got sushi, but didn't really know how to track things from a Chinese food perspective that I'd feel good about it. So I ended up ordering chicken teriyaki, edamame, white rice, and I factored in one or two other things I could have chose to have, but I decided not to because I didn't need it or want it. So I figured it wasn't necessary. And it ended up working just fine. So I think planning for things and being mindful for me helps.
Wow, that's really, really cool. Yeah, that's one of my go-tos for Chinese. I like chicken with broccoli over white rice. It's my go, and I find it just so delicious anyways. And if I'm really, doing a deficit, sometimes I'll just get steamed chicken and broccoli with white rice, and then they have like a little light sauce. I'm not sure what it is, but they put it on dumplings, and that's
Ginger sauce.
it
Yep.
really, yeah, the ginger sauce. It's really tasty. It's like I'm like, I did not feel like I was missing out at all. And
Yeah. I mean, I think it's not an egg roll. It's not a poo-poo platter. I mean, we all have to be realistic about it, but it's good food and you don't feel full in the end. And for me, that was the goal. Like, I mean, you feel full in the end. I think I said you don't. You feel full in the end. And I think for me that was important. And yeah, I wanted an egg roll, but I just chose not to have it because I wanted to have a couple of drinks that night. So it's choices.
exactly. Well said. Well said. So this was all awesome. Where do you go from here now? What are you working on now?
So you and I have been together for 2 sessions, 6 months, which was amazing. And I was a little nervous about us ending, but I don't feel like I needed another 3 months together the way your program works. So you were nice enough to put together a maintenance program, which I love, where we meet once a month. So for now, I'm staying on track with the macros we left off on and keeping track of what I'm doing and how I'm feeling. And when we meet for a 1 month check-in, we'll talk about how I'm feeling. And I like that because maybe I want to lose a couple of pounds in the fall to get ready for the holidays, right? Because we all know we treat ourselves in the holidays. Or maybe I want to build more muscle, or maybe I want to lean out more. So I feel like those monthly check-ins are going to be really great because I'll have guidance on how to shift things based on what I feel. But for now, I feel like I'm maintaining what we've created together. And yeah, that's where I am at the moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you bring up a good point, this was my downfall in the past is that I constantly diet. And then I didn't know what to do. I'm like, okay, now I have, I'm where I want to be, but I was so afraid of gaining the weight back that it would stay in this perpetual diet mode. But
Right,
really, we've got to periodize our nutrition. You don't want to stay in fat loss mode forever.
right,
Your metabolism slows down when you have less
right.
calories coming in because your body's trying to work more efficiently and conserve fuel.
Well,
And
and I
so,
think that's what's important for me being in midlife is, that year where I hired that homeopathic woman, like my metabolism was shot, like everything like stopped. I think that's one of the reasons I couldn't lose weight. So by being in this maintenance mode with you, when we meet at the end of this month, we may increase my calories by 100 or two, depending on what you think, and to shock that metabolism a little bit. And then when we meet the month later, we might go down 100. We'll figure it out as we go. But I like still working with you to help me navigate that, because I don't think I'm crafty enough to do it as eloquently.
Well, and it definitely helps to have accountability. And I'm not sure if I may have mentioned this to you, but I recently started working with a coach myself. I coaches need coaches too. And I definitely like having the accountability for sure, especially when it, comes to fat loss. Um, I'm just, I'm much more adherent when I have somebody to answer to every week.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's great. I'm excited for to see how you progress because you're not done. You're once you start building muscle and you know what you're doing in the gym, you just look year after year after year, you just start looking better and better and better. And
Yeah.
so there's more good things to come.
There's more good things to come. Yeah. I'm excited. Yeah. I feel great where I am, and I know it will get better over time, but yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough once again for doing this. And this was really, really good information. You are such a rock star and you have so many good tips. I hope that, my listeners will, be inspired. I'm sure they will. And yeah, and we'll keep everybody posted on your journey from time to time.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Karen, for everything. This has been the best decision I ever made, was to start working with you. Out of all the years of dieting and going to the gym, this by far had the best results. And we started to see it in, a short amount of time, like in the first 3 months. And I could have been done in the first 3 months, but I just wanted to keep going because it was so exciting. So, not everyone, if you're thinking of starting this process, not everyone needs 6 months, or not everyone needs a maintenance plan, but start with 3 and just see how you feel. That would be my recommendation. So thank you for everything.
My pleasure.